Happy Thursday and welcome to another episode of Bar Convent Brooklyn's webinar series. My name is Mecca Kumstil and I'm the content manager for BC Bay and today's host. In this session, we will learn about how to incorporate cheese into your business as a way to find new revenue, which is especially relevant in the new crazy COVID world. Also, we are having a tasting component today, which is really exciting. But before we start, I want to share some housekeeping notes with you. First of all, I want to let you know that we are recording today's webinar and that we are sending out an email with a recording to you tomorrow. If you're having difficulty hearing us and are listening through your computer, please check that your speaker volume is turned up. If you're still facing issues, you can message us using the chat box, which is located on the right side of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time through the same chat box. And now, I would like to introduce our wonderful speakers. Let me start with Cara Warren. She is both a certified cheese professional and certified cheese sensory expert with over 15 years of cheese experience. Cara particularly relishes the opportunity to pair cheeses with delicious craft brews and spirits. Cara is the current main host of the podcast Cutting the Curd, where she speaks with other amazing folks in the cheese biz industry and a regular speaker at special cheese events across the country. Today, she is accompanied by Adam Levy, known as the Alcohol Professor and founder of the International Beverage Competitions, an annual wine, beer, and spirits competition series taking place in New York City, Berlin, Melbourne, and Asia. He has also been known to provide special tastings events for his clients through his tasting company, All Spirits Events. Adam takes his role as the Alcohol Professor seriously and is a strong believer in the knowledge transfer experience. And that is one of the reasons why he's here today with us. That being said, take it away, Cara and Adam.
We're both really glad to be here. I think Cara and I both have some bottles, and we both have a cheese board. I'll show you mine. It's not as good as Cara's, but it's professional. It's the Alcohol Professor. Nice job, Cara.
Thanks.
I think one of the reasons why we did this program is because in today's day and age, and we had this conversation also in the industry, that the government, whether it's state or local, is really pushing the bar owner and restaurant owner to actually serve food with the drinks. And we know how tough it is out there for bar owners and restaurant owners today. And how do you find new revenue? And cheese could be, as Cara will tell you, she's going to tell you a lot about cheese later on, very soon, could be an important part of your bar revenue. And it's a chance to basically bring another value to your clients, your customers coming in for a drink, and put a cheese board out there. And now we can basically take away the whole mystery of what's a good cheese board, which spirit. So, Cara, please start.
Thanks for having me here. I'm super stoked. Being in the cheese business for quite a few years, and now seeing the certain climate that we have a lot of new opportunities. Like Cuomo has, as you mentioned before, said that now New York State Governor, you need to have food at your bar to be open. So right away, cheese is an easy one. You don't need like a big kitchen for that. You can right away start to think out, how do I want to assemble a cheese menu? And I think the first question is to look at how are you going to procure the cheese, and then secondly, how would you do it in a cheese cart style, or will you have like the cheese assigned to a cocktail already, like as a point of reference? I find most clients and customers, everyday people, don't have a super crazy knowledge of cheese. So I think less is more when it comes to choosing cheese. It's better to kind of push people towards, this is the spirit and here's the cheese that goes with it. So you can have a lot of fun on your menu writing. If you want to be an educator, then the cheese cart experience is the way to go. And that would have to be handled in a whole other way with coverings and so forth. So maybe nowadays with the current climate, I would say you have your one cheese that you pick to go with the cocktail, which we'll start to break down by each different alcohol and spirit, and show you, is it a goat cheese? Is it a cow's milk cheese? Is it a soft ripened cheese? These are all the different dynamics that you can have in cheese. But I guess since I just went through all that and your minds are like, whoa, what did I just talk about? The very first step is to be a best friend with a distributor, especially food distributor. And that's all regionally based. So you're in the business. Adam, you know how liquor business works and all that. It's very similar. You find your regional local guy and be his best friend, work with the sales rep, and then reach out to the producers individually if it's a local person and so forth. But that's where I would first start if you're working as a bar to get cheese and start either a cheese plate or a cheese cart. That's my very first thing I would say. Adam, I don't know, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I guess my question to you, Cara, is like, what are normal expected minimums for a cheese order? I mean, obviously, if you're a bar owner and you could be in the West Village or in Tulsa or even in Tallahassee, like, what's the minimum orders expected?
Right. So it's true, it can be a few $100s, but actually some of the larger like Chef's Warehouse groups, Baldor, I'm New York based, so those are the big food service distributors. They actually have a lot of cheese as well. So you could combine your food order, your normal like ingredients and everyday ingredients and put cheese in with that. They have a lot of high-end and local cheese, imported and local cheeses that you could totally get with it. So I would say, sorry, I thought we had a question for a second, but I got a ding. So that's where I would start with that. Now, depending about sizing, like how much would you put per cheese, on a cheese plate? I would say that's about 1 ounce, 1 to 1.5 ounces per cheese. A lot of cheese plating is more about, I would say, breaking even, and then really the alcohol is where you make your money, like everything in a restaurant. So right now it's more like having a good time at a restaurant or a bar with cheese and enjoying like cocktails and beverages and getting to be outside and enjoy your life is what this kind of helps.
We don't want to perceive cheese to be a lost leader. We still want it to be a revenue generator. And we want to make sure that people are staying for that second or third round, obviously, at your establishment. I know you mentioned Governor Cuomo, who's in New York State, his rules about food has to be served with liquor. And obviously each city and state around the United States or internationally has their own rules. So please be aware what your local rules are. That's very important also. I asked Cara to pick out some cheeses for me to show everyone. I'm going to go through that shortly. And I also went out and picked out 5 different spirits. And I didn't go anything too crazy, esoteric. And the first one we'll probably go to, if we can do it, Cara, is vodka.
Yeah, so vodka, because same thing with cheese and liquor. I think you start with the lightest and go to the heaviest. So we'll go here first. And in that respect, I went with a goat cheese from New York called Mohawk Mist, which is a fresh goat cheese that I will cut some to show you. It's kind of, when you see fresh goat cheese, it's sometimes labeled as a chev. This is almost sort of, it has like a bounce to it. It's not as chalky as a fresh chev can normally be, but that's because it's the Loire style, so a French style goat cheese. And we're gonna do this to cut through the Cutwater vodka, actually.
Yeah, I picked Cutwater. They won Distillery of the Year for us at the New York International Spirits Competition last year. They're used to be part of Ballast Point, and they split off Cutwater. And they're a great distillery. They do great RTDs as well as their vodka, which is a terrific vodka. And they also do some nice good bourbons and aged and unaged rums. So they've got good national distribution these days, and they're a good vodka. I think they say they're 6 times distilled, so some smoothness there.
Cool. So when you're drinking a spirit and doing a cheese tasting, if you're doing a formal tasting, I sort of like to build a sandwich with the tasting. So I start with, so I'll take a sip of vodka, then take a bite of cheese, and then go back to the vodka.
It's good, clean pressed vodka. Nice layers to it. You can tell it's multiple times distilled. You can serve this definitely
Yeah.
neat, ice. We didn't do cocktails today because we want to focus more on the spirit itself. Not too distracting, but obviously there's a lot of great vodka cocktails out there. Obviously, classic martini and other ones out there. And these will all work with the cheeses we have selected here today.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of pairings, and what this does is it elevates the cheese. So with the goat cheese, I'm getting kind of the yeasty floral notes out of the goat cheese. And it's not overpowering the vodka, so they're playing with each other. There's also a great mouthfeel between the two. It's cutting, like we said before, the fat that's in the goat cheese. And no, it's an awesome, really awesome pairing. I mean, other ideas you could play with. I have a brie coming up next, but a brie would go very well with this. Smoked cheeses go very well. And then you can really go with terroir-based or area-based ideas as well. You know, if you have a California goat cheese and you have the San Diego vodka, why not do that? You know, play it up. Absolutely.
What's a naive question someone's going to ask about goat cheese? Like, does it come from goats, or does it come from a certain area, or how is it made? Is it organic or is it non-organic out there? Like, what are the naive questions you get?
Oh, that's good. So actually, it's sort of a slightly funny one, but a lot of times people ask, do you have a lactose-free cheese? Because they're allergic to the sugar in cheese, which is lactose, and a goat cheese has the lowest amount. So a lot of times you will tell everyone, hey, this goat cheese has the lowest in lactose sugar, and the reason why it's so white is there's no beta carotene in the milk. So when animals eat grass, they have beta carotene in their milk, like cows, and it turns the cheese orange or a golden yellow. Well, goats don't actually have, that doesn't happen in their milk. So that's why whenever you get a goat cheese, it's always like a pure white. And so that's one way for your staff, if they mix up the cheeses, to discern. You just say, oh, that's a goat cheese. Okay, that's a goat milk cheese. So those are some of the outstanding fun points for goat's milk. And then they're usually also like tart. They're not as sweet as a cow's milk cheese as well. Yeah.
What type of like crackers would you serve with this, or on the side?
Funny you should ask.
I'm trying to be funny.
I brought these California, I think something with like this, can you see? Okay, good. Yeah, like this kind of thickness, like kind of crunchy flatbread would be the best. Something that has like that artisanal, homey approach is really great. Plain crackers also, like flavored ones are good if you have the right intention, but you don't want to take away from the cheese. You don't want to have like these clashes of flavor. Like there can be pepper, rosemary, those are out there in the market. But I really do think an honest, good, like thicker artisanal cracker is the way to go. If you make it yourself and you have the time to do that, bonus points, like do it. Yeah.
Any certain brand recommends for like a bar owner?
It's Cowgirl Creamery. They're a cheesemaker organic cheesemaker in California. But I'm also a fan of the Cars. You know, standard classic Cars never hurts anybody, you know. Yeah, but also it's what you like. I mean, shoot, you could have matzah, you know, I don't know. It depends on what the theme of your restaurant is, you know, where it's coming from and what the intention is. But easy, basic plain crackers are always a winner. Otherwise, there's fresh bread, but I think with cheese, I prefer a cracker over bread, which I don't know, that might get me in trouble with some cheesemongers, but I prefer it, you know, it's a texture thing. It's up to you.
So if you have this cheese and the crackers, and not trying too much on the cracker side, but would you recommend it on the board, on a separate thing to carry it out in, like a cracker holder? I mean, I'm just looking for stuff for bar owners and restaurant owners, like they want another thing to buy, or anything else to present with.
And it should be, you know, also when you're costing out the cheese plate, make sure that you cost that out as well. Like, But yeah, so back to your point about where to place it, depending on your style, it's a plate that can hold it with a little bowl. You can do something like that, or you can have it next to the cheese. That's totally okay. If you have gluten-free clientele, just be aware you might not want to have it too close to the cheese or not on the platter, so you can remove it. A point to go back to in terms of organizing a cheese plate, I would do one high-cost cheese and one low-cost cheese just to kind of even it out, so you can have a little more room to budget. If you're having like 3 to 4 cheeses on a cheese plate, aim for like the $22 to $24 mark on the menu. These are sort of like the textbook things for cheese plates. If you're confident about your cheese choices, then again, like have it pre-chosen for customers, unless you want to seriously educate your staff on every detail of the cheese, because it's important to know the milk type, where it's from, the style of the cheese, which we're going through today. We're going to go through the different styles. So we just went through our fresh cheese. That was our first foray into the cheese board, for example.
Okay. So we'll go to the next spirit and we'll ask more questions along the way. What's next?
Next one is a gin, actually.
Oh, you get the Japanese gin.
Yes.
I gave you my last bottle. That's Suntory's Roku Gin, another winner. A great bottle of gin. I also brought another bottle of gin I like, Karuna from Scotland.
Oh, cool. Nice.
They're from Scotland. They also do they also own by Old Putney and Ball Blair, same company, Interbev. Same in Porter. Very big fan of their gins and their overall spirits. And I also brought with me later on, this is an interesting barrel-aged gin from Bar Hill out of Vermont, distilled out of honey. Another great winner from New York International Spirits Competition. The great people up there in Vermont. It's a great, look at the great color. If you can see it better, how aged it is and how great it is. But let's try the gin. And what cheese we're going with?
So this one I went with the French Brie, cow's milk Brie, because they make goat's milk too. But this is a cow's milk Brie from Isigny-Saint-Mer, so Brie d'Isigny, and with the gin that has the floral, citrus, kind of peppery notes. I'm hoping that the cream and the mushroom notes of the Brie go very well together. So cheers.
For those who may not know what a Brie looks like compared to the goat cheese, can we show?
Yeah, we're gonna go with that right there. Let's see. Now you can see the yellow color, like I was saying before, compared to the goat cheese. That's the beta carotene in the milk. And then when we're talking about rinds, because rinds are the other half of cheese, we call the inside of the cheese paste, but the outside is rind. And this is a bloomy rind. Our first cheese didn't have a rind, so I didn't need to talk about it. But a bloomy rind is basically penicillin candidum, which is put into the milk, and then when it's out into a drying room, a humidified and temperature-controlled room, a halor in France, that's where the rind starts to grow and become this fluffy pillow of bloomy rind. So actually, it's a lot of fun if you're into microbiology. There's a lot of that there. So,
but people do eat the rind, they eat the whole Brie. Someone's not used to Brie, you can eat the whole piece of cheese itself.
Yeah, I would say, so on this version of Brie, this is where it's important to pick a higher quality Brie. If you buy a Brie that is like a sprayed on Brie, which you can tell is very even, paper thin, and has no brown modding, because brown modding is natural to the bloomy rind. If you see that it's not going to be very tasty. It might be bitter. So I really do suggest investing in a Brie that's probably going to be, let's see, from a wholesaler, at the end, if you were in a cheese shop, I'd sell it to you for, $12 to $14 a pound. So, I recommend investing in cheese plates because you will get what you pay for in cheese. Yeah.
When you price out the cheese plates, are you doing a 1-person plate, a 2-person plate, a 4-person plate, or how would you price that out?
Great question. A lot of times I think 2 or 4-person options are the best way to go.
Okay.
Because then 1 person can enjoy it, like just be a cheese lover and enjoy it. 2 people, it's a sexy date. And 4 people, it's a party. So, you have room there. But also, again, get a vibe for what your customers are ordering. You know, if you're a wine bar and you have a bar, you know, you're sitting at the bar by yourself, or you have a lot of customers that are just that style, set it up so that it looks very cool for one person. There are tricks to making cheese plates look bigger, like the crackers being taller, having olives with it. You can have, I brought along now I wouldn't put a whole bit of this, but this is the smoking goose honeycomb. So this has a super smoky flavor that you could put over a goat cheese or a triple creme brie, or any brie for that matter. And there's just lots of other tricks to add height and texture to the plate that I would definitely investigate as you get to know specialty food more and more.
This is good brie.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thanks for being kind to me on this one.
Oh yeah, I tried. It gets a little bit funkier soon, so you know.
But brie can be made anywhere. I mean, it doesn't have to be made in France. Brie can be made. So
correct, yeah. So that's the other thing. So this, the AOP brie that is protected in France is raw milk. This is the pasteurized version. So, and it's not protected everywhere in terms of, so that AOP version exists, but if you buy it in the States, there's American bries, style bries. They usually say brie style next to it. That's the jargon. So you could have something like Moses Sleeper from Jasper Hill, or anything with that kind of bloomy rind situation. A lot of our artisanal American producers aim to call a brie because people recognize the name brie. Yeah, so, but I think the French have the recipe down, so you have to try a bunch and see which one you like the best. But also remember double cream versus triple creme. Double creme is 60 to 75% butterfat. Triple creme is over 75% butterfat, goes really well with champagnes or very fizzy drinks. And they add more cream into it, and that's why it's such a high in butterfat, delicious, decadent situation.
And again, how many ounces would you serve per person on board?
Yeah, I would do 1 to 1.5 per person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to, let's say, do a regional craft spirits with the regional cheese, they can look for local cheese sources also, local cheese farms, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and all these producers are, especially the American producers, are definitely willing to work direct because, you know, like everyone, they need the money too. So, and it's good to know your farmers. I mean, everybody, I think, knows that too. So,
yes.
Yeah, get to know your cheesemakers, especially. So my point that I'm going to now is it was big in the Northeast and very big in California, but even in the South now, there are cheesemakers in Georgia, Tennessee. It's not just in like the agricultural, you think first of places that have cheese. So it's really spread out now.
Would most farmers, let's say in the South or any other parts of the country, would they have multiple versions of cheese, or they only make one style of cheese?
It's whatever they want. In the United States, it's up to the cheesemaker. There's no like dedicated area that has to make like a cheddar. You know, like in France, in Normandy, you're making Camembert all day. Or in the Loire Valley, you're making goat cheeses. In Spain, there's Manchego. So here, it's much more of you're free at will to design whatever you want, but the climate really helps you choose what you're going to make. So if it's a drier, more arid area, you're probably going to make something with goat cheeses or sheep's milk cheeses. If you have lush green fields like Wisconsin and Vermont, you're going to make a cow's milk cheese because they need that much grass and water to make the cheese. So
would a cheese farmer, would they have goat cheese brie and two other versions of cheese, or they'll only make one style on average?
So usually new cheesemakers will make 10 different styles of cheese.
Mm-hmm.
As they start to learn the recipes that they, I think, prefer and see that they're excelling at, they'll definitely dwindle it down to like a top 4. And it's better that way for their business model because they're right. Usually most dairy farmers that become cheesemakers, you know, they're just selling their milk by weight. And that's not a lot of money in that product. But once you do start making cheese, there's added value. And there's a lot more money to play with in that. The soft ripened cheeses are the easiest for cash flow because they can move those out of their caves faster. But an aged cheese is a little bit more difficult because you have to hold them for, maybe 9 months or a year or 2 years to get that aged quality that you really want. And that's money sitting on a shelf then. So you really have to be already good at cheese to make an aged cheese, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we move to the next spirit?
Yeah, it's
Wait, one more question. Any recommended cocktails maybe with this with the brie?
With the brie, I mean, the gin is absolutely perfect with it. I mean, martinis are great. Why not? Classic. I mean, I go for the classic drinks, but maybe you could.
That's fine. I'm a classic guy myself.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and it has olives, so you're doing the olive thing if you like it dirty. It all goes. So the tequila.
Tequila.
Tequila. Yeah.
Which one did I give you?
You gave me the. Oh, let me show you. Let me move these around for a moment. So the tall bottle here, Certa.
Cierto, yes. Very good winner of our competitions. They have a great Blanco, Reposado, Añejo, and Extra Añejo. I think I gave you the Reposado today, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. I got the Herradura.
Ooh, nice.
Brown Farm Inspiration, another good national brand. I like Reposado. It's got a nice, still crisp, but not too aged in the barrel for me.
Well, the smokiness too that comes off this. So then I thought, because of the smoky nature and the aged nature of this tequila, Adam, I decided to pair it with a washed rind style cheese.
Ooh.
Those tend to be, here, I'm going to use a knife to move it around. So these tend to be very soft and very funky, usually dripped like that. The orange rind you can see is basically bee linens turning red, so Brevibacterium, as we say in the cheese biz. You can also see that the texture of this cheese is starting to slump. That's great. I don't want to eat cold cheese. That's like half of the flavor then you're getting in your cheese. I took these out about 40 minutes ago, I would say 40 minutes to an hour. That's important. You should always aim to have it at room temp. So now going ahead with this cheese, it's going to be a little bit gritty on the rind. That's okay. Salt.
The dark one.
Yeah, and it's going to be on the stronger side of cheese life, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about serving cheese at a room temperature. Mm-hmm. I mean, you keep a rotating plate in and out, or how does it, if someone sits down and says, okay, I want a cheese platter, do you say, give me an hour, or do you say, I have a rotating plate coming out?
Yeah, I would say on the side somewhere with like a lid over it. Keep it on a plate, make sure it doesn't stick too much. But yeah, you would have it at room temp, rotating it, checking it every other hour or whatever you need. And it's definitely good to educate the consumer on this as well, to say, look, we serve our cheeses at room temp. And I think your customers will appreciate that like tenfold, because when they get it, it's sexy, it has more flavor. This cheese is Oma, made by Jasper Hill, actually Von Trapp Farm, but aged by Jasper Hill. So that's another thing to note when you are talking about cheese. There's a producer, and then there's an aging group, which is sometimes labeled as an appaneur. So it's good to know both, because they explain the characteristics of the cheese as you get to know the cheeses, the qualities, because the aging from the cave usually gives like a sort of minerality, and it's based on the appaneur, how they fix that to their liking. And then the producer, that's explanatory, that's the grass and the cows and who's making it, their recipe. So
the appaneur will buy the cheese from the source and age it themselves.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
It's like an independent bottler in Scotland. There are people buy the juice, to buy the cask, and they may buy it, and then a Gordon MacPhail or another type of independent bottler will then put in their own cask.
Mm-hmm.
The account will always be in, let's say, this white oak barrel. They put it into a rum cask, and they'll age it their own way in their own rick house. It's interesting that they do that also with cheese.
Big time. And I mean, there's a competition for it in France as well. There's the MOF, for it. No, it's super important. And if you start to read labels on the cheese, you'll start to see different names, and you're like, oh, there's a rolled off Meunier, there's Hervé Mons, there's a Jasper Hill at the Cellars as the American version of it. So yeah, it's super important as you start to learn about cheese to recognize those names. They're definitely a shout out to quality, for sure. Another shout out for quality is the AOP PDO elements that are on European cheeses. So also look for that when you're buying cheese.
Would a display of cheese almost look like a cake display sometimes on a bar, where this way you can keep it room temperature but covered, like a nice glass display?
So you could do that. Some cheese people like myself might be a little wary of it, just because, say, a blue cheese, for example, could really damage your brie in the way that the blue will bounce onto the brie. Like, it will start to grow and add blue onto the paste, and you don't want to cross-contaminate. You could do likes with likes, for sure. Like natural rind cheeses, bloomy rind cheeses can be kept in their own separate things. Blue cheese is separate things, washed rind separate things. But I wouldn't just do like all 5 of these on one cool wedding cake style. It could probably think about it when you put anything in a fridge, even how something flavors wise permeate. You want to keep them kind of, even in cheese cases, that's why they're kept in groupings, sort of, so they don't cross contaminate each other.
That's why I asked these questions, because I would probably put them all in one plate and make that mistake. So that's why I ask these questions now.
Perfect. No, it's spot on, Adam. Thank you. No, I'm glad. This is very, very good.
It's a good, I mean, I enjoy the spice with the rind. It's a good pairing that way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was a home run. 100% down. One elevated the other. One didn't override the other. That's what I look for in good pairings. And I usually will also, when I'm developing pairings, I'll make a spreadsheet and test a few different things and then grade them on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, and then make sure that I have that set up. You can't just blindly say, oh, I'm going to do this with this, because each bottle is different, each cheese is different. Sometimes the seasons make the cheese different. For example, a springtime cheese has more flowers and versatile ingredient, what the cows are eating is more versatile. Whereas in the winter, it's super dry and the cheese is going to be more white and more concentrated fat. So, keep an eye on also the life of the cheese, the seasons of the cheese. A cheese when it's younger is going to be tart. As it ages, it'll get more bitter, more funky. Some people prefer that. It's always moving. So you have to look at.
And what's the average time as we get to the next cheese? Should a cheese really sit in the fridge if it's part of your cheese program? When do you know when it's reached its point? Is it by cheese category? Say, okay, goat cheese 3 days, blue cheese 5 days, or is there a certain type of expiration date you should be looking at?
So cheese is a living, breathing thing. And so a lot of times you can 30 days or more, depending if it's an aged cheese, I would say. But you can cut away the dried out part and the inside of the cheese will be more than fine. Or you can rotate it into your menu and reuse it, repurpose it, make a vegetarian stock with it if you have a bunch of rinds that are wax free and natural rinds, you have a lot of room with cheese. It's actually one of the nice things about it. It has a longer shelf life than most other products that you would buy normally for a restaurant, I would say.
Let's go to the next cheese, the next spirit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Next.
This is, I have this one here.
A Bacardi.
Bacardi, yeah. Bacardi Grand Reserve.
Limitada.
Yeah, I'm matching.
Yes. Which cheese?
And then for the cheese on this, I went with Mimolette, actually, which I will show the fanfare behind the camera lens. It looks like this at first. It's a wheel, it's a cannonball that weighs, yeah, there you go. Exactly, like a 6.6 pound wheel.
Looks like an old cantaloupe.
Yeah, it gets often mistaken for that. But what I like about it is if you start to investigate cheese utensils and cheeseware, You would shard it off with a Parmesan knife like this. I don't know if you can see the reflection. There we go. You know, different knife wear is important to cheese. This would be a brie knife because there's less surface area to touch, you know, to lose cheese on. So remember, how to cut a cheese is also important. You don't want to cut it too close to the rind, and you don't want to have it stick to your knife. So for an aged cheese, I would basically I like sharded it out to so you get these really cool crystally orange pieces of cheese, which look super awesome on a cheese plate in my opinion. And so I paired that. It has like a salty sort of flavor. This is a 12-month aged version. Yeah, so cheers.
Cheers.
So it sort of has that drier, it's not like an overly sweet rum, has more of like a structure to it. And sort of like apple notes in the background, which made me think of Calvados more than rum. So I thought Mimolette, which is from Normandy, where a lot of Calvados comes from, would be an awesome playful friend together. So
it's an interesting cheese. It's got a great flavor to it, as well as the color, which definitely looks great on a cheese board. Any preference on a color of a cheese board? Is it should be brown? Should it be black? Or
right on. So perfect, great question for this, especially with Mimolette being so orange. Is a black slate is great. My only thing is just be cautious about slates. They chip a lot. They're very easy to kind of bust up. Natural wood is great if you're good at making your own natural wood platters. Do it. Anything rustic is amazing. White plates are very classy too. It's just all about your vibe of your place. And then just remember, you want to have spacing. You don't want things too close to each other. You want it to look clean. You know, think about where you're going to put the crackers or the bread. Where am I going to put the condiment? You know, is it a little bowl with a little spoon? You know, are you adding it to the cheese already? You know, are you making like cheese sushi? I mean, these are some things that cheesemongers have. Yeah, some people have taken pieces of goat cheese and wrapped them with seaweed. I mean,
really?
yeah, it's a matter. I mean, there are perfect bites that you can make into art. It's just a matter of, do you have the time? How focused are you on that? And what is your level of creativity with cheese? So that's where I leave that. But there's a lot of room to play for sure. Yeah.
And cocktail wise, do you think anything?
Sorry, what was that?
Cocktail wise for this type of cheese?
Oh, Manhattans are great. They're also fun if you wanted to go down the gin area. Anything that's like very sweet or has like apple notes or like bourbon notes can go very well with Mimolette because it has that high salty umami flavor to it. It's a more savory cheese than some other cheeses that tend to be more like cream or buttery or sweet. This is just like an aggressive, it's sort of like the French cousin of Parmesan, I want to say. So
again, 2 ounces per person.
Yeah, the best you can aim for on that. Yeah, because it goes a long way. It goes a long way.
What's a good price point for this type of cheese?
So this cheese generally goes for, depending on the age, so 12-month can be like $25 in a retail store. But if you get to like a 2-year age level or an 18-month, that's closer to like 30, 32 a pound in like a store, like a cheese shop. So, you know, again, that would be a lot less from a wholesaler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. No, I definitely enjoyed pairing that one. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. It's always like a first hit for some people too, because they see that bright orange and they've never had a cheese that color. So it comes through from cave aging and from they add annatto, which is like a seed from the Caribbean that's like crushed up and added to the milk to give it like that bright orange look to the paste.
No, we're all about the long tail effect. You want someone when they go to the bar to discover something new, and then they go back and be able to get that later on, or at least have that experience. So they always remember the fun experience they had at your bar and your restaurant. So they discover something new. Where should we go next?
Well, our last cheese on the plate is blue, actually. So I have the Gouda Verne paired with our blended whiskey here, the Buchanan's Deluxe 12-year. Yeah, there you go, Bleu de Verne, exactly, from the Auvergne region. So that's a mountainous area in France, has volcanic soil. And this is on the creamier side of blue cheeses. There's blue cheeses like Stilton that are on the drier side, just to give you a perspective. So when you're pairing this, think about salt, think about tartness. There you go. There we are. Ta-da. Yeah.
Yes.
So blues can be scary to people, but they don't have to be. And as I always say, there's a blue for everyone. France has Bleu de Verne, Forme d'Ambert, Roquefort, excuse me. But then Italy has Gorgonzola. United States has Bailey Hayes and Blue. So there's a large spectrum of blue cheeses. If somebody says they don't like blue cheese, I say give them a taste at some point and figure out what they're looking for. Talk them through it.
Wow, that is creamy and full and well-bodied. It's got fullness to it.
Yeah, but it's not like funky, salty, bad or anything like that. Like sometimes when you have cheese from, say, a supermarket, or like you had a salad, a blue cheese salad, it doesn't really represent what blue cheese is about. It like has been sitting in a bag or in plastic for too long, and it gets ammoniated or bitter. This is a fresh blue cheese cut from a cheese counter or from a whole wheel of cheese right away. And you can tell that it's good because it's not brown on the edges. It's not overly oozy gooey. This is a very clean looking blue. And I think when you buy blue cheeses, you should almost look at them maybe like you would look at a fish. It should be clear and not overly gooey, and it should look like it's fresh. That's what I'll say about it.
I brought two of the whiskeys with me because I picked originally Buchanan's, which is a nice blended single malt, blended with Scotch, but I also have Lagavulin, which is a great smoky, peaty Islay whiskey, which I think would great in blue cheese. I've seen that happen a lot when I've been visited Islay myself. And I also got 40 Creek here, they're from the Campari group, nice Canadian whiskey. I think also do very well with this cheese also.
Awesome. Yeah. Blue cheese and whiskey, brown liquor goes very well together, for sure. Like, and that's, again, you have to go try them individually with each item, and you'll find like some really are not so great, and some are like, oh my God, what did I just eat? And that's what you have to note in your research before you put it on the menu.
I think also we can do this another webinar, hopefully down the road with BCB people, is to do even a whiskey cheese board, because the wide range between the bourbon versus a rye versus American Canadian rye versus a single malt Islay versus a lowland or Speyside, there's definitely different cheeses pairings that way also.
Yeah.
So what should as we start wrapping up, what's the normal retail price should be, or the price on the bar, so you still make a profit on a cheese? I mean, what should we be aiming for? Are you aiming for that $20 mark, $40 mark, $50 mark? How many people? I mean, what are you aiming for?
Exactly. 22 to 24 is the way you want it to be approachable. If you put it above 30, it won't be. People are nervous to have cheese because they don't know enough about it. So you need to make it very approachable. Sometimes, I mean, you can't go as far as sampling like a cheese counter, but it's all about the education. It's all about showing it on the menu, talking it through with your staff, what's here now, what's coming up, giving them links to the stories about what makes this cheese great so that they're excited to talk about it, and then pushing that to the consumer, to the client. So 22 to 24 is perfect. That's a sweet spot.
Okay. So you look at $22 to $24. Cost could be what, around 15 or so?
Yeah, and you got to break it down per ounce.
Okay. Crackers, that $15.
Exactly.
You're buying your boards, you're buying your crackers, you make it accessible, make it a viable option. People need a food option to sell with the liquor. Now you have something to offer. Hopefully that qualifies locally in your local city and state rules. Besides being the alcohol professor, I'm also the cheese professor. We have a site called the Cheese Professor. Please check out cheeseprofessor.com. Also, please check out Cara's podcast also. Cara's will be involved in our site also, what we're doing. We have cheeses here from Europe as well as from the United States. Obviously, we always want to support locally, support your local producers as much as possible. And as well your spirits, obviously I picked some national brands here, but also look for your good local craft distillers also, please. And I think that's it. Anything else you want to add, Cara?
No, thank you for having me on the show. Again, my podcast is Cutting the Curd. You can follow me at Cara Warren on Instagram. And this has been awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cara and Adam. I really appreciate your time and your valuable insights. I think it was really informative. I learned so much. And we actually have one question from the audience, and somebody's asking, how many cheeses or what kind of cheeses should I have on the menu? Like what kind of variety?
Definitely. Great question. So you need to break it down by style, in my opinion, and maybe have 2 cheeses per style. So like we talked about fresh cheese, that could be a goat cheese or mozzarella, feta. You can have the bloomy rinded cheese, which is a brie or another cheese like a brie style. Then you have washed rind cheese, which was the funky one we had in the middle. Then you have aged cheese, and then blue cheese. That's 9. That's a lot. If you think you have 3 out of those 5 that you want to do, start with that, 2 per style. And then you have, then you have 6. So that could be enough for you to start. And then see how they accept it in your bar, because it's a lot of education. So.
Okay, awesome. Let me check. I think that is it, and we are perfectly on time. So yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate you guys, and thank you everybody out there for attending our webinar, and I really hope to see you guys very soon.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.